NFR Extra follows all your favorite cowboys, interviews legends of rodeo, and talks to the best of country music. Follow Nevada Caldwell, Ryland Bentley, and Steve Godert every week as they delve deep into the stories behind the road to gold in Vegas at the National Finals Rodeo. It's revealing, comedic, and sometimes emotional. Find it on Spotify or anywhere you listen to podcasts. NFR Extra. All dirt, all rodeo, all year.
This is NFR Extra, episode 53. We keep rolling through the summer during the pandemic and keeping the conversation going in the Western lifestyle and rodeo industry. The PRCA contestants are gearing up for Cowboy Christmas in July, and so are we with the guests we got lined up today.
It's not every day we have rodeo royalty on NFR Extra, but we certainly do today. We get to talk to Karin Rosser from the Flying U Rodeo.
Our good friend Dale Brisby sits down with 2019 world champion team roper Wesley Thorpe for 7 and 7. That's 7 questions in 7 minutes.
Then we up our horsemanship knowledge when we sit down with Chris Cox from Chris Cox Horsemanship. And what a difference in personalities from our last horse expert, Clinton Anderson.
But up next, we have Ryland Bentley's Rodeo News of the Week.
This is Bryland's Bull, the Rodeo News of the Week.
PRCA Stat of the Week. 6 is the number of rodeos that will air or stream on the Cowboy Channel and or the Cowboy Channel Plus app through the 4th of July weekend. This list consists of the world's oldest rodeo, Black Hill Roundup, Cody Stampede, Belton, the 4th of July Celebration Rodeo, Sitting Bull Stampede, and Oakley Independence Day Rodeo. Bull rider Bailey Warden captured the win in Crossett, Arkansas with 87.5-point ride on Pete Carr's Pro Rodeo Concho Lizard. Shad Mayfield is chasing an all-around title from tie-down to team roping. He has his 2020 goal set. The Canadian Professional Rodeo Association, Westerner Park and Deer and District Chamber of Commerce made the decision to postpone this year's Canadian Final Rodeo until 2021. Cowboy Christmas is running full speed, and myself and Las Vegas Events wishes all contestants good luck, stay healthy, and let's rodeo.
Each year at Cowboy Christmas, more than 250,000 country western shoppers mingle with NFR contestants Flint Rasmussen and the best junior cowboys and cowgirls in the world. There's no place in sports where your rodeo heroes find time to meet and greet their fans 9 to 5 every day. Cowboy Christmas. It's shopping, live music, rodeo, and so much more. Book your reservations and find out more at nfrexperience.com. Cowboy Christmas. It's all here.
Good afternoon. My name is Karin Rosser from Marysville, California. Welcome to NFR Extra.
Today, Karin Rosser joins NFR Extra. Karin is the wife of legendary stock contractor Karin Rosser of Flying U Rodeo Company, the oldest rodeo company in the world and the major supplier of rodeo stock in the United States. There isn't much Karin has accomplished in the Western lifestyle, serving as the first president of the Utah Junior Quarter Horse Association, winning Miss Rodeo Utah, serving on the PRCA Executive Board, an inductee into the National Cowboy and Western Heritage and the PRCA Hall of Fame. We will talk to Karin about growing up as a rodeo queen, falling in love with Karin Rosser, her involvement with the NFR in the early days of Las Vegas, and much, much more. Welcome to NFR Extra, Karin Rosser. How are you doing?
Well, we're doing fine in California. It's so good to hear from everyone.
Yeah, I hear you on that.
Karin, I've had an opportunity to work with you for quite a few years as I was working with the Flying U Rodeo Company. But prior to that, you have had some history with rodeo when you were growing up back in Utah. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm a former Miss Rodeo Utah. And so I had a little bit of rodeo background, but not as much as I've gathered over the last 40 plus years.
During that time of being Miss Rodeo Utah, what was it like traveling then compared to how you guys would travel now?
Wow. I guess you had to work a lot harder to be invited to different events, and I was very fortunate that my parents wanted us to get out and see more of not just Utah, but all the other states. And so I was able to travel to Ohio, to the Quarter Horse Congress, to San Diego, to the fair in San Diego. It was all different events, but they basically were tied to rodeo. So I've always said that being a Miss Rodeo Utah, Miss Rodeo California, Miss Rodeo Marysville Stampede are all a good thing for young women, because it makes them go out and speak to different people and to learn how to interact in different situations. And I wouldn't change that for anything.
I got a question for you, because this is something I've learned, and Karin, just to be kind of, we always got to clarify this. I'm not necessarily the rodeo ranching horse person here. I'm always the city guy that gets to host this podcast. But fortunately, we have folks like Steve and Brylan who've grown up in this. But I've learned a lot along the way, being a part of the NFR, being a part of Las Vegas events, and living at Cowboy Christmas during December. So the Miss Rodeo part is a little different from other, let's just call them pageants when we're talking about for the female side of things. How was that for you? And as I'm looking here, you excelled in Western and English riding. How did those things kind of intertwine to you growing up and your horsemanship of, well, just being a youth at that time? And where was your passion of all that? I mean, did that just drive you to be involved with the Western lifestyle?
Well, I grew up with 3 younger sisters, and my father was smart enough to get us all involved with horses. And living in Utah, Utah has the greatest snow. And when I was in high school, all of my friends were skiers. And I went home one day and I told my dad that I thought I might like to take up skiing. And he said, well, then, the horse thing will have to go, either one or the other. But the more I thought about it, horses you can do all year round. When we were growing up, we showed quarter horses during the summer. And then in the winter, my dad had a couple teams of cutter horses. And so every Saturday, he'd load us all up in the pickup, and we'd go to the cutter races, and he assigned each one of us a horse. And that was the horse that we helped hook up and cool out and were responsible for. So he was a pretty smart man in keeping his family involved in all the things that we all enjoyed. And so through the showing quarter horses, I rode to the Western and the English. And so there were some trainers that needed to get points on horses in different events. So they would come to me and ask me if I would ride their horse to see if I could get some points for them in the English. And so I became accustomed to riding different horses. And then college time came around, and I had planned to go to college, and my dad, I was talking to him about, taking the horse, and he said, well, you can't take a horse to college. No way. So I wound up staying home, and the Miss Rodeo Ogden contest came up, and I decided, well, that's something else I can do with the horse. So I entered Miss Rodeo Ogden, and then went on to the Miss Rodeo Utah contest and won that. And then went on to Miss Rodeo America, where I was first runner-up. The year before, Miss Rodeo Utah, Connie Della Lucia won Miss Rodeo America. So I had a good role model there. the following year, when I gave up my title as Miss Rodeo Utah, I wound up crowning my younger sister. And so we were back-to-back sisters winning the title of Miss Rodeo Utah. And I didn't really compete in the WPRA in any way. In the quarter horse shows, they had events, you know, for barrel racing, pole bending. So I'm you know, was familiar with that, but my focus was on making an all-around horse. So.
Yeah, I got a good question, because there's a question to follow that's come from Steve that I think will set this up. But as I know, that world's always right around the rodeo business, right? And there's stock contractors and things like that. You probably didn't know that there was some foreshadowing going on there for the rest of your life to come, right? I mean, is that something that?
No. Yeah. No, I did not think of it in that terms. No, but the way I met Cotton was, of course, at a rodeo. And when I was Miss Rodeo Utah, I made it a point to all the rodeos that I visited to go up and talk to the announcer to let them know that I was there, and to give them a little bio card, but then also to talk to the stock contractors to make sure that, you know, sometimes the girls get in the way, and we wanted to make sure that we were doing things that suited them, that didn't hold up the production at all. And after I gave up my title as Miss Rodeo Utah, I got a call from Cotton one year after Ogden, and he said, "I'd like to take you to lunch." And I thought it was just to visit a bit with about the rodeo, and the rest is history, shall we say.
Yeah, a lot of history. And as you made mention, in the 40 some odd years that you guys have been together, there has been, you know, they always say behind every good man stands a great woman. And I've watched at these rodeos, Cotton does Karin Rosser stuff, and you have got to orchestrate so many different working parts with so much. And I mean, is that something that he, once you guys got married, it's just like, this is what you do? Or is that something that you took on more and more responsibility on the rodeo side of?
Well, I've often said that I'm a jack of all trades, but a master of none. Right after we were married, we were down in at the Forum, and the Forum was an indoor rodeo, and where the Lakers played, and we were tearing down at that point we were tearing down the arena, I guess it was, and Lee Rosser said to me, "Come on, get in this truck. It's about time you learned how to drive the truck to haul the panels." Well, that was around the but I learned how to kind of set up an arena, tear it down. I don't know, I'm not as good as Reno on the forklift, so in those days it was all by hand, and learned how to pin panels. And we were also noted, Cotton was noted for having his bucking horses on a portable manger. So they were all halter broke. And he said, "Go down there and unsnap that horse and bring him out here." Well, gee, have you ever walked in a manger? Especially a portable one, because they're canvas, or and they're not real steady, and then you got horses pulling back because, hey, there's a person walking down through the middle of them. But learned how to do that. I don't know that I haven't gotten into loading any of the bucking stock. I've helped load roping cattle, so I can work the back end of that. The stripping chute, know how to do that.
Yeah. It's not just go ahead.
Well, you have to also remember that it's always good to have people that work that you don't have to pay.
Yeah. Excited young individuals.
Yeah.
And that deal too, to clarify this is from what I've seen, most all of the rodeos you go to and have a role of some part or another, whether it's being a timer or a secretary or just helping Cotton with logistics, but it's not just you being at home and hanging out. And if you were home just hanging out, you guys also have a Western store you have to take care of.
Yes. The Western store, Cotton's had it for 64 years, and it's in Marysville, one of the oldest Western stores still in existence in California. But there's a huge emotional attachment to this store because Cotton was injured in a tractor accident, and in those days they didn't have insurance, and he had 2 small kids. He needed to figure out how he was going to support those kids because he was told that because of his tractor accident he would never walk again. So some good folks put on a benefit for him here in Marysville, or Yuba City, excuse me. And with that money that they raised for the benefit, he was able to buy the Western store and thus ensure that his family would at least have bread on the table every day. And so he's kept it going when probably the smart thing would be to close the store and just focus on the rodeo business, but he hasn't ever done that. So we have both the Western store and the rodeo company.
But your background, right, Karin, correct me if I'm wrong, there's fashion merchandising or something to that point of your education? Does that kind of,
yes,
is that how that kind of as well? Did that help that out?
It has to some degrees. Not, I wish I would have known what I know now then. That would have helped a lot. But yeah, the one thing about the rodeo business too is that besides learning about the logistics and the livestock is I had never flown in a small airplane until Cotton and I were married. And I have spent many hours in the Bonanza. And the sad thing is that a few years ago, the insurance company said that he was too old to fly any longer, and so they wouldn't insure him. And we have now graduated back to a car to get us to all those events. And oh, by the way, I'm the driver.
Flying again, no kidding. Geez, add that to the resume of already tremendous amounts of obligation. And V, you have got to see the Cotton's Cowboy Corral that Karin was just talking about. It's not just a Western store. I mean, it's got a lot of really cool stuff downstairs, all the clothes and everything, and something for the entire family. And then you go upstairs, and that's Cotton's office and the pictures throughout the years of all, the horses and bulls that he's raised and the events he's put on. And I mean, just, it's insane to go there. It's literally a museum. They've kind of got a part of it that's a museum upstairs, but it is downtown Marysville on 5th Street, if I'm not mistaken. Cotton's Cowboy Corral, you got to check it out.
Well, and we're also talking to a very talented cabinet maker. Steve Goddard came by one day, and I said, nice. I'd really like to case back here to put some of Cotton's memorabilia in. And he and I sat and talked about it, and not too much longer here, he and his father came and set up these beautiful cabinets that display all of these things that were sitting in cabinets and boxes. So I always appreciate the fact that Steve had the same eye that I did and could understand what it was I was talking about.
Steve.
Yeah, it didn't, and it didn't hold all of it. It was like a fraction of the stuff. I mean, the awards and everything. We need a warehouse to showcase that stuff.
We do, and you're right. But no, we have people come all the time that want to come look at that, and then thanks to Steve, we're able to put it out on display.
Karen, I got a question. So I want to talk about what you've seen, what you got an experience in these years of being around rodeo. So clearly you've been a part of being a timer and a secretary. What are some moments you've got to be front row that you've seen is there some moments you've got to witness something that was really important on the rodeo side during that competition, like a timer, anybody? Is there anything that kind of sticks out of your mind, the moments you got to be a part of?
Well, I got to think about that for a minute, because when you do it every day, you don't stop to think that was a monumental thing that just happened. I mean, it was just part of what you were there to do. As I guess my life evolved in the rodeo business, I wound up calling the spotlights at our indoor shows, working with the sound men, with the music. And those were not things that I was trained to do, but I had some very good mentors, one of them being Lex Conley, who could announce a rodeo and tell you that spot number 4 was not open full. And I mean, he was an unbelievable man as far as the production, and could talk to people and also tell you that the sound needed to go up, or just a myriad of different things. And I guess one of the stories about Lex is we were at the Kingdome in Seattle, and Kingdome is a huge building, and of course the rodeo only played like a quarter of it, but the rodeo gets over and the livestock, they're putting it away outdoors, and here comes people. There's a bull going up the walkways, and this bull was just taking a leisurely stroll up the different floors, and Lex Conley goes out and jumps on one of the saddle horses and goes up there, and indoor buildings, the floors are kind of slick, and with a horse with shoes on, it's even worse. And Lex goes up there, one minute he's announcing, and the next minute he's out there trying to take care of a bull that's out. So multifaceted. All the people that are involved in rodeo have to be multifaceted.
If only you had security cameras back then, that would have been fantastic for social media.
Yeah, that was before that.
Let's hit the pause button with Karin Rosser from Flying U Rodeo. After the break, Karin talks about her involvement with NFR in the early days of Las Vegas.
In 2020, more than 7,000 kids will compete for the coveted 750 spots at the Junior World Finals in Las Vegas, presented by Yeti. Each qualifier will go head-to-head for more than $500,000 and a championship buckle in the biggest rodeo youth event in the country. This could be the first stop on the road to a pro rodeo card and a gold buckle in Vegas. Find out how your son or daughter can earn the right to compete against the best at the Junior World Finals, presented by Yeti.
Hi, I am Benny Butler, and you're listening to NFR Extra.
We are talking to Karin Rosser from Flying U Rodeo. When Karin is not donating her time with hosting ranch tours for school children, supporting FFA, 4-H, and high school rodeo clubs, she's managing Cotton's Cowboy Corral, a Marysville, California Western wear store.
You were involved in the first NFR that came to Las Vegas. What was kind of your biggest experience with the Flying U and the Thomas and Mack?
Well, I think that part of the reason, besides Cotton being such a showman, the fact that we had worked so many indoor buildings, and that was new to a lot of people that worked the NFR. They didn't know how to, talk to everybody. And Cotton had told me a long time ago, you always want to talk to the gate man. Always be nice to him, because one day he may be your rodeo chairman. You never know. So every time that we would go into a building, it was like, you know, a family reunion, and we knew the different people and new people that came on. It was like a new member of the family. So when we went to the NFR, the very first NFR, we wound up taking all the hoses to water all the livestock. Nobody had thought about that. And we took the decorations for the arena, because nobody had really given that a whole lot of thought. Oh, and by the way, the pickup men didn't have shirts, so we brought our wardrobe for the pickup men. There were a lot of little details. The big stuff everybody had covered, but it was the little details. And as I shared with Braylon the other day, the building to call the spots, you had to get up in the basket before they opened the doors, because they didn't want you falling out on people. So you had to sit up there. And I was sitting there just going over what we were doing for the opening. And the sound man next to me said, they want you on the headsets. So I got on there, and it was the building. And when do you want us to open the doors? And I said, what do you mean, when do you open the doors? Have you checked with Sean Davis? Well, we can't get a hold of him, and you're the only one that we can get a hold of. And I said, well, normally at our rodeos, we open the doors 2 hours before. Okay, 2 hours it is. And so I was the one that called the opening of the doors for the NFR for the first.
Nice.
But there
cool.
again, yeah. But there again, if you go to enough meetings, you kind of pick up on all the things that need to be done. And so they just came to me and asked.
Well, and like you said, the little details are the ones that typically end up being the most important ones.
Mm-hmm. They are. They are. And we enjoyed we did the openings for 9 years there. And it was every performance, Cotton wanted something different, because he didn't want somebody going away, well, I've seen that before. Well, with his imagination and Cindy, his daughter's help, we were able to do that and do some things that people have never seen. I mean, they didn't know that you could put a horse up on a turntable and put fire underneath him and have him stand there. Not every horse is going to do that, but Cotton has been very good about finding those kind of horses that do that.
Hey, Karin, were you Oklahoma?
Go ahead.
Were you helping out with the NFR at Oklahoma and then coming to Thomas Mack Center, or was this all coming to Vegas, Thomas Mack Center?
Well, this dates me too. The only time that I was in Oklahoma City for the NFR was when I went back as Miss Rodeo Utah to the Miss Rodeo America contest.
Gotcha.
So I had seen it in person then, but I had not been back. So we were happy that it came to Las Vegas. What a great 24-hour town. Cotton tells stories about going to Oklahoma City, and he flew in there, and the next morning gets up and all of his horses have frost on their nose because an ice storm had gone through there. And these are California horses. They don't know what that is. But the other thing that he would say, that you go there, and if you did not eat before the performance, you didn't eat because everything closed up. Well, look at the difference between Las Vegas. You can eat anytime you want in Las Vegas. And so it's been a good move for everyone. Cotton was on the board that first year when they moved to Las Vegas, and we were riding up in an elevator with some people that were from Oklahoma City, and he said, well, what did you think of it? Well, we like Oklahoma, but Las Vegas is great. Mm-hmm. So Las Vegas has really taken the NFR to what it is now. I mean, the showmanship, the cheering for the different contestants. My favorite part of besides the opening and the national anthem, is when they introduce all the contestants by states and how they come in and how they've earned that right to ride then. I think that's pretty emotional.
Yes.
Grand Entry is definitely the best. And it's funny to watch, like, as each night goes on, the excitement just keeps building with the horses and the competitors. It's one of those things that you just look forward to, running down that tunnel on those horses.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Hey, I got a question about, this is just kind of offhand of what all the other things we're talking about, but you're a member of, just think this is kind of cool, this HANDS, the HANDS, what is that? First of all, what's that acronym, and what does that all entail? What that you're involved with?
Well, it's a group of 50 women that have all been involved in rodeo, whether it's with their husbands, contesting, or excuse me just a second. Sorry, that wasn't my phone, it was Cotton's. So it's a group of 50 women that are there to support people in rodeo that maybe something has happened and they're not able to, pay all their bills, to just kind of be there to support. And it's a wonderful group of women.
So kind of similar to like the Justin Cowboy Crisis Forum, but on a different format and for the women.
Yes. And I'm sorry that we don't do a lot of fundraising like the Justin Crisis Fund. So our fees, or the money that we raise, are from each other. And we just donate what we can every year. And with that, that's how we're able to send little nice notes of encouragement to people, or when a family member has passed away, or just in a small way. But I think that it's been very well received by people that have been recipients of it. And I'm also on the board of the Rodeo Historical Society, that's based out of the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum in Oklahoma City. And there again, another wonderful group, but they are trying to recognize people that maybe were not recognized in their younger days, but are still involved. And there's wonderful stories there as well, and I think we all tend to get so wrapped up in our busy lives that we kind of forget about the people that have come before us. And this is a good reminder of what people have done in order to keep the rodeo spirit going.
That's awesome to recognize those people that, and especially with rodeo, it's like, it always seems that there's a transition that kind of doesn't exist between somebody's hot and they're on fire, and then all of a sudden they get hurt or they retire and they kind of move on, and maybe didn't get the accolades that they should have received, or passed on when they were younger. But this year is obviously been a very trying year for all of us in throughout every industry in the world. But for rodeo especially, because one thing that I don't think a lot of people take into consideration is that a lot of those rodeos, those animals, that's how stock contractors make their money. And when you're not putting those horses and bulls and roping cattle on the road, they're staying at the ranch, but they still got to be taken care of. How difficult has that been this year?
Well, it's a challenge. Cotton says that he's a rodeo producer without a rodeo. So we've tried to look at different ways to cut expenses and without having to cut our livestock down, because you're talking about a lifetime of breeding programs, and you don't want to give that up in one pandemic unless you have to. But we have also been the recipient of a new group that has started called Rodeo Strong. It was started by Cindy Schockholt from St. Paul, and she and her group were probably the first people to recognize that stock contractors have huge issues. And so they have done some fundraising, and they've had different donations, and they have written checks to stock contractors to just take care of the livestock, for the feed, for the veterinary things that you have to have done. It's not for your payroll, and it's not for anything that's non-rodeo related. But and then Cotton received a letter from one of his friends from Washington, and inside was a check and with a note saying, "Nobody's asked me, but I think that you've got a few more mouths to feed than I do, so I hope that you can put this to use." But it's people like that that we've been blessed to know, and without saying a word have just stepped up and given us a little boost. But Cotton and Reno have been very diligent in trying to sit down and look at the bottom line. Without having any income coming in, we still have expenses. And Reno is driving a truck hauling cattle for other people in order to have an income coming into the rodeo company. So it's as everybody else, it's a challenge. But as I keep reminding Cotton, we are better off than the people, say in New York, that live in a 900 square foot apartment. We can at least walk out every day into the yard and have something to look at, and there's always something that needs your attention, and so we are much better off than a 900 foot apartment.
Yeah. And one of the things also is it's I think absolutely amazing that people have been reaching out and helping you guys through this time to kind of sustain your livestock. But throughout the rodeos that I've been fortunate enough to be a part of with you guys, every rodeo that you put on has some event that helps, where they're sending money back into the community, like the Marysville Stampede that you guys put on there. That's fully produced by Flying U and the Rosser family, and they put on additional events that help that community. So not only not having rodeos is hurting the rodeo industry, but it really is, I think, taking a big hit to communities for all the benefit that rodeo brings as well.
Yes. And one of our committees is a Chamber of Commerce, and they suddenly found out that the rodeo brings so much more into the chamber that they need to operate with, and they're trying to figure out how to do it later in the year. So we hope that's the case. But in California too, we do a lot of fair rodeos, and the fairs have been forced to shut down too because of social distancing and how you do that on a fairgrounds. I don't know, but they have been pretty creative in having the virtual livestock auctions for the kids. And so the kids that have raised animals aren't left out 100% by with the the feed and the care of their animal to get it to the fair, and then not being able to sell it. So there again, another learning experience for young people, but nobody could have taught them how to do that either, because nobody has experienced anything like that.
Yeah.
Chris Bowman talked about that. We were talking to him from Rodeo Houston, and he was talking about when things got shut down, they were able to go to the auction side virtual, and what was it, $7 million? That's right. Is that the
$7.5 million was raised through their virtual auctions that they had to continue on, and that was not including the prior auctions that had went on.
Yeah. No. So I think that people, in livestock and agriculture, and of course the American cowboy, have a giving heart, and they are trying to help everybody as best they can.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. And that's kind of Karen, I think you really hit that on the head, is like, that's just the cowboy way, is helping your neighbor. And that's, the whole entire ranching aspect is everybody going and helping everybody else when they need a job that, requires multiple hands, and they'll know that it comes back around to them. So it's very positive to see that there's some stuff coming back around to the people that have helped out so much for rodeo.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Karen, first of all, this was great. I don't know if you thought this was going to go as well as you thought it was, but for us, this has been, there's a 360 here of things that we've learned of yourself that I think a lot of people, I don't know. I think this was fantastic. Thank you for coming on. This was, I like getting to know Karin Rosser.
Well, as I said earlier, I'm honored to be asked, but there are more rosters that are more interesting than this one. So, but I appreciate the opportunity.
Steve, Brylan, anything for Karen?
Yeah, that was awesome. All the years I've known you, and I've learned a lot here from just from this conversation. And it's great to hear you guys doing well, and look forward to being able to get down the rodeo trail again, and hopefully see everybody healthy and doing well in Las Vegas for the Wrangler National Finals Rodeo.
Yes. Yep. We're all looking forward to rodeos and good times.
Yes. Thank you for joining us.
All right. Well, thank you. You all take care and stay safe.
Hi, I'm World Champion Jacob Crawley, and you're listening to NFR Extra.
Howdy, ladies and gentlemen. We've got Dale Brisby. Welcome to Rodeo Time 7 and 7. That is the show. This is the show where we're going to call rodeo athletes, and if they don't know, let them know what time it is, and then 7 questions in 7 minutes. So next up, we're going to call Wesley Thorpe. He is a 2019 Team Roping World Champion. I believe he's a header. Is he a header, Donnie?
That's what you said.
I think he's a header. Anyways, we're going to find out, because we're going to call him, and I'm sure he's going to answer, again, because he's just as much a fan of me as I am him. Looks like we got the same area code. Find out where this guy's from. Right up the road, probably. I bet he moved here just to be close to a champion like me. Am I calling the right guy? Yep. We are. Oh, you do not send Dale Brisby to voicemail. Don't do it, Wesley. Don't do it, Wesley.
Your call has been
Oh
forwarded
my
to an
gosh.
automatic voice message system. Please record your message.
He doesn't even have a personalized voicemail.
You may hang up.
That's
or
baloney.
press 1 for more options.
Wesley, this is Dale Brisby, and you do not send Dale Brisby to voicemail. Call me back for your 7 and 7 with Dale Brisby. This is an opportunity of a lifetime, Wes. I know you're a world champion, but you get a call with DB. Okay, once in a lifetime opportunity. Call me back. Love you, bye, like me. Wesley, this is DB. How are you today?
Hey, I'm good. How are you doing?
Really good. We're just in here calling a few of our favorite rodeo cowboys. You said you're at a school today?
Yes, sir. I had a half a day little school this morning.
Okay, little team roping school. How many students do you have?
There's about 6 or 7.
Okay, nice. 67.
Yes,
is that headers and heelers or just one?
Just one. We had both. We had about three headers, 4 heelers.
And you won the world in the heading, right?
Heeling, yes, sir.
Heeling, yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us. This is Rodeo Time 7 and 7, 7 questions in 7 minutes. If you are ready, we'll jump right into them. Just a few easy questions. We just kind of want to learn more about our NFR friends and athletes.
You bet.
Okay, cool. So what is it that got you started in heeling? Like, what made you choose that event?
Well, I grew up roping calves and being around. I grew up, around a ranching family and rode horses and rode calves and stuff. And then I started team roping, and my dad heeled. It's mainly what he did, so I always thought that was kind of cool when I was at a young age. I just thought heeling looked fun, but I wanted to learn how to head too, and I kind of started out mainly heading. Also, so I just thought it was fun to heel. I don't know, it just kind of was always appealing to me. It seems like it's hard to find headers because everybody does want to heel, but
So I thought the opposite was true. I thought headers always had a hard time finding heelers.
Well, as far as it's true a little bit, but like as far as learning, like around our community and all the people that roped and stuff, it was just funny because everybody would get to where they could head pretty good, and then they'd all want to start heeling, so we could never have enough people to turn the steers.
Gotcha.
So it was kind of fun. It was just kind of the joke growing up that as soon as somebody learned how to head good, have a good partner, then they all want to start heeling. It was hard to keep headers around.
So where did you grow up?
Throckmorton, Texas.
Oh, okay. Yeah, not far. Yeah, I live about 30 miles from there.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So I guess that leads us into our second question. Who inspires you the most? It sounds like it might be your dad.
Well, my dad, he grew up roping and stuff, and it kind of got me, him and my granddad both. My granddad really got me started riding a lot. He raised horses and ran cattle, and my dad roped and ran cattle, so they kind of both got me started as far as my dad hauled me around a lot into junior rodeos and stuff, and he really liked the competition side of it, and my granddad liked more of the training side of it and messing with horses, so it was kind of a good combination there. They both were able to help me a lot, and my dad really he helped me the most, kind of picking the right path. He knew a lot about roping and about a lot of things with rodeo, but what he didn't know, he never gave bad information, or if he didn't know something, he tried to help me get somebody that did know it.
You bet.
So I would say he had a big impact on me in that way.
So going through the rodeo levels, I guess you could say, tell me about the transition competing at the CNFR compared to the NFR.
Well, it's a lot different atmosphere. It is a different, it's kind of a stepping stone, just because the NFR to me is the ultimate, it's the Super Bowl. So when you grow up as a kid, I mean, I remember being a really young kid, watch the NFR on TV, and just, that was it. I'd go out there and rope the dummy all day long, and I was just, I was Trevor Brazil back in the box, or I was Clay O'Brien Cooper back in the box, or Speed Williams, or Rich Skelton. You're just out there acting like you're whoever's you're watching and roping the dummy a million times as a little kid. So it's something that you've literally set your sights on at a very young age. So that's kind of the ultimate goal. And the college finals is a prestigious event, but once you get, it's just a stepping stone to the NFR. It's against people that are all kind of at your level or at that stage in their career.
You bet.
And the NFR is the very best of the best at everything.
So coming in, if you're going to give advice to a contestant coming in, let's say he's going into the team roping, whether it be heading or heeling, what would be some general advice that comes to mind for that young person?
You have to get around the right people. Get around somebody, have a mentor, somebody that knows more than you do, and rope around guys that are better than you, and kind of get a path to follow. Kind of get you, have a game plan. That way you know kind of what to do at each step and where to go and what you should be. It'll save you a lot of time. There's not as much trial and error involved.
Yep.
It saves you a lot of steps, or saves you a lot of bad habits. It can save you some bad decisions on all kinds of things. So, really getting around somebody that knows more than you do and can help you, and then, kind of getting a game plan.
So 2020 has obviously been a little bit of a different year. Have you gained a new perspective on the importance of rodeo in your life?
It has been a very different year. I was fortunate enough to have had a few good years, the last few years, meet a lot of people, a lot of new people. And to answer your question, I'd say yes. It's made such an impact on me, to all the people I've met through rodeo, that, during this time, whenever there weren't things going on, I was able to have lessons and stay pretty busy that way and stuff. So, but it doesn't matter what you're doing. I think rodeo as a whole, it's just, there's a lot of opportunities out there, other avenues and ways to get around the right people. So it's definitely been pretty, eye-opening during this time.
Yes, sir. What's been your favorite rodeo win that you can remember?
Favorite rodeo win. I thought Reno. I won Reno, Nevada one time. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that'd be a good one. That one's. Is that in April, or am I thinking Red Bluff?
It's in June. Towards the end of June.
Okay,
yes,
I might be thinking Red Bluff. So speaking of June, what's the longest that you've been away rodeoing at one time?
I'm gonna say I've been gone for. I had my family with me last year in the summer. We were probably gone for six weeks at one time.
Oh, wow.
Almost up to 8 weeks. So, I would say close to 2 months at one time I've been gone.
That's a long time with horses.
That's a long time. Absolutely. Yeah. And it wouldn't be fun at all if you didn't have. I had my family with me, so it made it nice because we were in nice weather, and we got to stay around Ellensburg at the Rep's house. And they have a really cool place. It kind of feels like home away from home, And, so that made it nice, but that is a long time to be away.
Yes, sir. Well, I sure appreciate you joining us for 7 and 7, and man, I wish you the best in 2020, and hope your summer starts off great and ends with, Lord willing, another trip to the NFR.
Oh, that'd be nice. I sure appreciate it. Thank you.
Y'all getting any bind over there ranching, just give me a call. I'm right down the road.
Yes, sir. Okay.
All right, Wesley, have a good day.
You too.
Uh-huh. Thank you. Oh, don't turn it off. I got to tell them goodbye, Donnie. Thank you guys for joining us. This has been Rodeo Time 7 and 7, where we talk to some of your favorite NFR athletes. 7 questions in 7 minutes. And I guess we're on to the next one. Donnie is more ready than ever. And pow. I'm your man, Dale Brisby.
Do you need a dose of social? A dash of insider info? Then the National Finals Rodeo Social Network is set up just for you. Get updates, insights, unique content, and much more on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. You can find us at Las Vegas NFR. And be sure to use hashtag Wrangler NFR on your posts and tweets. There's something for all rodeo fans. This is the NFR. This is Vegas.
Hi, this is Derek Stevens. I'm the owner and chief executive officer of the D Las Vegas, and this is NFR Extra.
Chris Cox, the 4-time Road to the Horse champion, has been conducting clinics and demonstrations for over 28 years. Influenced in his early years by both English and Western traditions, Chris has implemented a style and technique that can be applied universally between both horse worlds. Chris talks to us about his definition of success in the horse business and why 40 million fans on RFD TV have come to love Chris Cox Horsemanship. He demonstrates with dedication and mutual respect to achieve a versatile and willing partnership between horse and human. If you love horses, then you will enjoy our conversation with Chris on NFR Extra. Welcome to NFR Extra, Chris Cox. Hello, sir. How you doing?
Doing great. How you guys doing?
Not bad.
You got the heat in Texas, and I've got the cold in Montana still.
Yeah, I heard there's a cold front up there.
Yeah, it's called Montana. It never goes away. So
yeah, we've got a ranch in Wyoming, and we're leaving to go up there this weekend for the summer, and it's been snowing there all week, so we're kind of stuck in between heat and snow. So
yeah. So how did you get involved in the aspect of horse training that you are now? Did you come from a background of that, from a ranching family or from training family, or tell us a little bit about how you got into it?
Well, I didn't certainly come from a group of horse trainers. Came from a family of ranchers, and just raised on a ranch. And we used to use the horse a lot, and was fortunate enough to start at a young age, and we had to go off to boarding school eventually, and then because we lived so far from town. But the horse was a big part of our lives, and I really didn't know that I could make a good living with it until later on in my life. I was born in the States, and I went to Australia when I was just about 18 months old. I came back when I was 18 and started my career. I actually got a BLM permit, Bureau of Land Management, where I went around and started wild Mustangs and some of these adoption satellites that we're doing. So that's kind of how I first got started doing clinics. That's been 32 years ago. And so it's just kind of revolved from there,
So when you grew up on the ranches there, that was obviously in Australia. Did you guys, the difference, I just assume everybody rides a stock saddle and cracks a whip down in Australia. Is that pretty much the case, or did you guys use ropes, or what's it like growing up on a ranch in Australia?
Well, our ranch was a little bit differently because my dad was raised on King Ranch. So he had brought some, Western style saddles over there, and he used the rope quite a bit. But, we'd go back and forth from a Western saddle to a stock saddle. We were kind of diverse in that area. And we grew up catching cattle by the tail,
Yeah.
If you know anything about it, that's how we caught cattle and bulls and stuff. And so learned how to use a whip, but also, we used a rope as well at times, and I felt like I had the best of both worlds.
So when you went off to boarding school, did you have to leave all that behind, or were you able to come home for summers and work, or what? Did you have a little sabbatical from horses?
No, never really. I always came back from, back for the summers, or I'd go contract gathering. Some friends, I used to go to ranches, and they'd contract gathering cattle. It could be, big ranches, 1 million, 2 million acres, and I'd go with them for the summer and gather cattle and stuff. And so I was always involved in that. I played rugby. I was a pretty decent rugby player growing up, but it just wasn't my passion. I was pretty good at it, but it just wasn't my passion. But the horses always, they were just part of my life. I went to a horse a lot, whether in stressful times and happy times, and I just felt like I got it kind of really helped my soul and just guided me over here, and all the things that I've learned from the horse, I've tried to put into my life, and my techniques on teaching people are just the techniques that I use when I'm working with a horse. So it's all transpired in a big circle.
Speaking of big circles, when you talk about gathering 1 million, 2 million acre ranches, what kind of, you've got to have some serious horsepower when you go out there.
Well, everybody's got, a group of horses, just like a remuda over here. They've got 8 or 10 different horses. And then, but those horses, a lot of those horses over there are not purebred quarter horses. A lot of them are crossed anymore. They're crossed, or they had the Australian stock horse, which is a smaller type of thoroughbred that if you ever watch the Mammoth and Snowy River, you get a pretty good idea. But their stamina and their strength and their speed, you know, when you're trying to gather wild cattle in big country, they cover a lot of country. And you know, at that time, the quarter horses, they went through a stage to where they were bulldoggy, thick, heavy horses earlier on, and they couldn't cover the country the way they needed. But you know, the style has changed now, and now you've got quarter horses that look like thoroughbreds, or big and strong and lanky, and kind of like the running quarter horses, you know. But yeah, it was having a good horse, or having a horse that had the heart and the stamina was very important.
So did that kind of translate over to your BLM side for when you started working with all those BLM horses? I mean, you had to have been fairly familiar with a pretty rugged horse then.
Well, it's funny you said that. I was actually just thinking about and talking about that the other day with some folks. You know, I think what's helped me be successful in starting colts or in my horsemanship is growing up having those not so well bred or tougher horses, you know, that could buck, that could kick you down when you're petting their nose, you know, or strike at you, you know, that were so quick, or you'd ride them all day and they'd buck at 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And you know, today these horses are so well bred and you know, they almost come broke, you know, and the fight, a lot of the fight has been taken out of them through the bloodlines over the years. And, you know, there's the odd one, you know, we all, you know, and there'd be people thinking, well, I've got this one, I've got that one. Yeah. But I tell you what, growing up, those horses are pretty stingy. And having that experience through that has certainly helped me in my journey. And it doesn't mean that every horse that I work with was easy, but you know, the foundation that I had of those horses certainly made me a lot more aware and more sensitive.
Hey, Chris. So, I mean, clearly you can hear the passion of what you have for horsemanship or just horses in general. Just like we ask a lot of athletes, pro contestants for rodeo, what have you, at what point in your age did it go, this is going to be what I do every day of my life going forward? There had to come a point where this is going to pay the bills. When did that start to happen?
I think it took 30 years. I you know, during this COVID-19, I haven't had a check in 3.5 months. So, but yeah, you know, I tell you, I've always tried to preach to children and to myself. And there was a lot of times there, it was hard to make it. I starved to death when I first started. I did a testimonial the other day, and I used to eat rice and getting started. And you know, it was just tough, but I never quit. And I could have took a lot of turns and I don't say I've made it, but I'm sure a lot further along in my life than if I would have gone in a different direction, I'm sure. But you know, I just never quit, and I was very resilient. And so I knew that if I had a passion for it, that I would be good at it. And when I'm good at it, money will eventually come. So I see young kids today, and they get into it and they look at the money side of it, and don't get into it if it's about money, because horses is way too much work. And if you add up the per hour and all that, it doesn't add up. But when you develop a passion, when you can get up and you can work for free, if you had to work for free and it's something that you love to do. And for me, it's growing me as a person and trying to sharpen my skills and my communication, my feel and my awareness each and every day. and feeling those horses' feet hit the ground and knowing where the feet are anytime I want. That to me drives me. And now I've got a family and my children. I watch them ride, and I ride together with them, and I see the passion that they have. It makes it all worthwhile. But to get back, to circle back around to your question, is that I knew would eventually come if I kept the passion, and whatever it takes to do, I had to do it. And you know, whether it's working 7 days a week or working from early in the morning to late at night, I've done all those things. I've had to clean the stalls myself. I had to dock the cattle myself. I had to fix fence myself. I had to do everything myself until I can afford some help. You know, and then buying your first place, and you know, just on and on and on and on. And you know, it's not easy, and it's not for the weak-hearted. But I think the resilience and has really helped me, you know, stay forward and go forward and never quit. So I'm pretty blessed with that.
During the process of your training and deciding to take this on full time, how has your technique maybe changed over the timing of from where your facility is at, what your facility consists of? Is there certain things that you have to have in order to train?
That's a great question. And we grew up, round pens were a big thing, and you know, everybody used a round pen and started cold in a round pen. You had to have a round pen. When I first did clinics, I'd put them in a round pen. And if you come to the ranch today, you go to my little round pen and it's full of grass. And the reason being is that I've tried to perfect my horsemanship to where I didn't have to rely on a pen. And I wanted to rely on my techniques and my feel and my timing and my communication with my horse. And so, I'm forever growing, and I'll always be a student of the horse. I'll never be an expert. I'll never tell anybody I'm an expert, because what that does is it gets me to where I think I got it all figured out, and I don't. I have success. Every horse has a different personality. Every horse has a different feel, and I've got to learn to be able to adjust to those horses. And my biggest thing now is teaching. I make an income from teaching. I ride my own horses, so I don't get paid to ride other people's horses. I teach. I have groups of people that come to me, and I teach. And I realize when I'm teaching somebody, and them and their horse, they all receive the message a little bit differently. And the horses help me be able to readjust that message to fit the needs of each personality. And so, when we grew up in school, my mind operated so fast. If my teacher didn't keep my attention, it would drift off. And I'd be looking out the window. I'd be writing stuff down or dreaming about my dreams and going forward or coming to the United States and my ambitions. But if they kept my attention, I'd focus. And so horses are the same way, and people are the same way. So I've had to learn a teaching style and learn to adjust my style and my techniques depending on the student, whether it's the horse or the human. And so that's an ongoing craft that I'm learning to work on. And there for years, I've done it for so long, I got burnt out. I probably got burnt out twice. And with the last 7 years, the last 7 to 10 years, I've reignited myself with the passion and understand it's a challenge, and I work on myself. So if somebody was to say, do you train horses? And I said, I'll tell them no, I actually train myself. So when I'm working with a horse, I'm training on myself. Because if I do all the correct things and I'm in the timing, the feel, and the sensitivity and the awareness of the horse's emotions, I can accomplish something. But if I'm not, and I'm training the horse, I take it out on the horse. I get frustrated on the horse. It's always the horse's fault. And I never do admit to myself that I'm the problem. And so it's an ongoing process, and it's an amazing process. And we actually started a foundation called Lead Changes, leadchanges.org. We take children, and we're taking them this summer. We're bringing some children out of the inner cities every year, talking about California, out of the Compton area, different parts of the United States, some ranch kids that need lifting up. We build their personalities up. We give them self-esteem. We teach them respect and a work ethic, and we teach them how to communicate to a horse. And what happens is when the horse tells them what to do, they listen. And it's amazing transformation. So, you know, the whole understanding of the communication through the horse. The horse is such a powerful animal. It heals people every day, whether it's therapeutic or mentally, or even just common people like myself that have stress and you know, worries throughout the day. When I get on my horse and I work with my horse and I communicate to him and I connect to him, it has a special little place in my life where I go there and it's peace, and everything's taken away. It's just me and that horse, and we become a unity. And it's the best therapy you could ever have.
First of all, just to be clear, you know, Rylan, Steve, they grow up in this world around horses, just the whole ranching lifestyle. For me, I have family that it's a part of it in Colorado and things like that, but I'm just more a fan of people's passions and the things that they do. I think there's so much life marketing in that. But I want to talk about, I just like the name of this event, Road to the Horse World Champion. And you're a 4-time champ there, undefeated. Could you talk a little bit about this competition, you know, your years in winning it, and just kind of what does it entail? Because I'm fascinated to hear from what this is all about.
Well, we kind of touched a little bit on my background earlier growing up, and I had these people that came to me in the early 2000, 2001, maybe 2000, that wanted to start a competition, and so I met with them and gave them some ideas, and they asked me, said, who would you like to go up against? I said, the best in the world. So I gave them some names, Buck Branham and Pat Pirelli, you know, Clinton Anderson that started about that time. And make a long story short, they didn't invite me on the first, even though I organized it, they didn't invite me on the first Road to the Horse. And I guess I was scorned a little bit, so I was away from it for 3 years, 3 to 4 years. And then they came back around and wanted me to go up against the champions. So in 2007, I did, and that's where they bring in horses that are 3-year-olds that have sometimes they've had a halter on them, but they barely can lead, and so they're bigger, stronger horses. They haven't had a lot of handling. They've never been saddled. They've never been ridden, and they bring them in front of 7,000 to 10,000 people. Sometimes some years it was 14,000, and they we've got I guess 2 hours one day with I believe a 40-minute mandatory time. We got to give the horse a rest, and by the third day, and you might have 30 to 40 minutes of actual riding on this horse. We rope on them, we jump on them, we back them up. We walk, trot, canter, lope, stop, turn around in front of the crowd. And so this is all done with a raw horse. And it's probably one of the most raw things you'll ever see in front of a crowd. And so, and you're judged. You have judges that are there. You've got 5 judges, the high and low scores thrown out. You've got veterinarians on hand to make sure that the horse is taken care of. And not abused, and the horse doesn't get too hot, and all these things. And so I went in 2007, and I was fortunate enough to win it that time. And then they invited me back in 2008. Went up against 4 guys and won it there. And then probably one of the most memorable ones is in 2011. I went back where at that time the 3 top horsemen, as far as commercial horsemen, were involved, and that was Pat Pirelli, myself, and then Clinton Anderson. and there were so many people there. The toilets were backed up, and the concession stand ran out of food, and there was a lot of people there. You know, one of the most memorable things, my mother and my father's never seen me do a demonstration. I left home when I was really young, and my mom flew over and actually surprised me. She was 70, and she's she was 68. She's 82 now, but that was in 2011, and that was a great surprise. And my children were just getting around, walking around, and they didn't really remember it, but that was a very memorable time. And I won there, and then I stayed out for a few years, and the producer called me and said, "What would it take to get you to come back?" And I said, $100,000 for the winner. And so I came back in 2015 and went up against some people that have went through some competitions and won their leg, and I was fortunate enough to win it in 2015. And so I haven't been back since, but what was really special about 2015 is that my wife was there. Of course, she was there with every one of the ones that I won, but my children were old enough to remember it, and they were old enough to be involved. And I'm 53, but I'm an old pupper. I've got a 10-year-old and an 11-year-old, a girl and a boy, and I look over there and they're cheering and jumping up and down and cheering me on, and you know, that was the most special thing in my life as far as letting them watch the competition, you know. And so that in a nutshell is pretty much what it is. And they've taken horsemen from all over. There's people that have competed against from all over the world, and there's certainly been some copycats. You know, they have it in Europe, and I judged one in Poland one year. Australia has them, New Zealand has them, Canada has them. But that was one of the first ones to start up, and I was very fortunate to do well in that competition.
Time to take a break with Chris Cox from Chris Cox Horsemanship. And when we get back, Chris shares his insight on how to connect humans to horses, plus how the power of television led to his success.
120 of the best cowboys and barrel racers rode into Las Vegas last December and left $10 million richer. The chase for 2020 has already begun, and all champions are hungry for gold. Be sure to follow your favorite cowboys, barrel racers, and local rodeos all season long. It all leads to one place, the Wrangler National Finals Rodeo. Learn more at NFRExperience.com. This is the NFR. This is Vegas.
Hi, I'm Sean Davis, and you're listening to NFR Extra.
We are here with Chris Cox from Chris Cox Horsemanship. Chris was inducted into the Texas Cowboy Hall of Fame in 2015.
You said now your kids are riding with you. Are they showing like real interest in that, or is it something that they kind of, I mean, is it, having watched you win the Road to the Horse and now being at the house and riding, I mean, is that a passion that's growing for them?
Well, first of all, I don't make them go ride their horse. I've never forced it upon them. But what I have done, I've taught them respect and discipline and hard work. And as we all know, the girls, as a girl, as a child, they're more mature earlier than a boy is. And my daughter she come out of the wound talking horse. I mean, she's just horse crazy. And so it was pretty special to be able to see her interest and she's always been a fan. My son, he rode, but he wasn't as passionate. And just in the last 2 years, he's become really passionate. And he rides really good, and he ropes, and he rides steers and junior bulls, and so. But they both have a passion for the horse. They love their horses. They care for their horses. Their horses trust them, and yeah, it's I don't care what it is. You look at what's going on in the world today. If these children don't have any chores, they don't have anything to look after, they don't have an animal to look after, they don't have a passion. And my children have a passion. And I was just this morning, I get up at 4:00 and go work horses, and I looked over at 5:00 in the morning or 5:30 in the morning. My son's in the barn way feeding the horses, and he got up himself, and he got up and rode early, and we don't make them do that. They've got to want to do that, and I think it's how you set them up. And people ask me all the time, they say, well, how do you get your children to ride? I said, here's the deal. I've seen it in baseball, I've seen it in football, and I've seen it in soccer, and I've seen it with horses. The parents over-dominate the children, and they try to live their dream through the child. And I said, here's the key. Pull them off the horse when they're crying to stay on. Don't wait until they're crying to get off. So when I first started with them, I'd let them ride a little bit, and they're having a good time. I'd stop them. Let's go. Let's put them up. But I see so many adults that drive it, and when they're too young, they make them, and then they're crying to get off their horse. Another thing is I made it fun for them. I didn't give them too much instruction at the beginning. I want them to go have a good time, chase each other, play on their horses, do whatever. And I wanted to enjoy it. And then the instruction started coming slowly, and then the instruction just wasn't like it was overwhelming, So they didn't have to do everything perfectly. They just had to be able to enjoy themselves. And when the passion comes, they want to get better at it. They want to get better at their stops. They want to get better at their turnarounds. They want to get better working a cow, So I think that's very important to be able to keep that passion going.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. The opportunity, to have instruction like that. How many people would be clamoring over themselves to do that? But for you to be able to see that, and you've made multiple comments about horses and about people being similar on that. So to be able to put that parallel together of, you put too much pressure on a kid, they're going to probably do the opposite. You also made mention that you don't take outside horses for training, and you've just got your own horses. Are those horses that you market to sell, or are those just your own personal riding horses?
Well, that's a good question. I do have one horse here from a friend of mine, or two horses here from a friend of mine. I just do once in a while, but yeah, they're all ours. And I'm a poor hand at selling a horse because we don't sell them, we match them. So our reputation is way too valuable than to try to sell a horse that doesn't fit somebody. So my wife and I, we're very, very diligent about making sure that horse has a good home, and that horse fits that rider's needs and fits that rider's experience. So I don't care if they'll give us $50,000, $100,000 for the horse. It's got to be a fit. And so we want it to be sound. We just don't want to sell horses. There are horses here that we'll never sell. And two reasons why we won't sell them. One is they take too much maintenance, and they'll buck if they give them an opportunity. If they're not under my guidance, I can maintain them for 6 months and they won't ever buck. But if they go to somebody and they don't know how to maintain them, they're just that style of horse, I'll never sell that horse. And another thing, I'll never sell one that has a physical problem, because, it just, I want my reputation to be clean, and, it's not worth it. So, we don't push horses to market them, to sell them, but, we show horses a little bit. We show them the reining cow horse as well. And I show some cutting horses once in a while if I got a good one. And I team rope some when I get a chance, and so then we have just some good ranch horses. So yeah, but I'm real careful about making sure that the right horse gets to the right person.
That's awesome. It's one of those things that it definitely shows the horse's abilities better too when you do allow them to match up correctly. Part of that success you share on the Chris Cox Horsemanship Clinic that airs on RFD TV. How did you get involved kind of in sharing on that big of a platform?
You know, 16 or 18 years ago, Patrick Gotch called me, and I had some old DVDs or CDs or something, or VHS, I don't know what it was, but he wanted to play them on this RFD TV. And so I was real reluctant at the beginning, and I didn't send them to him. And then he kept calling, and at that time it was a public television. And he got in trouble for doing some stuff, and he had to shut the thing down and then reopen it where it was profit. And so I signed up with him, and, you know, I started doing a weekly show, and I was real apprehensive about it, you know, because I worked all my life for this information, and here I am, I'm paying. I actually had to pay RFD TV for airtime, and then I'm giving away free information. And so, but what that did for me was it got me to a lot of people. You know, I drove a truck and trailer all over the United States and Canada, and I performed at the Calgary Stampede all the way to Miami, Florida. And, but it got me in so many households. And, you know, you can drive the wheels off your truck, but, you know, the television was powerful at that time. And this is before, you know, Facebook and all that. And it was really, it exposed myself quite a bit. And I think it was good. I've built a lot of relationships and a lot of connections over the years. And matter of fact, I'm still on there, you know, and I didn't want to be a commercialized horseman. Most people that know me, I'm actually pretty shy. I'd rather be home, but it gave me a lot of opportunity to get in the doors and be a guest speaker in different places and you know, meet a lot of wonderful people across the country and in parts of the world. So, but it's, you know, I've been on there 16, 17 years now. And you know, with the internet going on, you just don't know, you know, television is losing its grip. Because there's so much on, whether it's Facebook or YouTube or, you know, there's so much information out there that these kids that can just get on their phone and look up anything. And, you know, where I grew up, we didn't have phones. There wasn't any VHS videos. There wasn't anything. You know, you might read the Western Horseman once in a while and see an article in there, and the people that knew something, they're reluctant to tell you. And so, but the formats and the information today, there's no excuse for people not to do well with their horses.
Absolutely agree with that.
Talking about technology, you know, something I've learned from my kids, and we were talking to Chris Ballman earlier from Rodeo Houston, and he was just talking about how, you know, this evolution utilizing technology and understanding you got to give into it and how it works. One thing I've learned with my kids, specifically the teenager, is that you're right. I mean, anything that I've learned from him of like, you got to figure something out, he goes right to YouTube. And, you know, before, if you go 10 years ago, like, oh man, you're on the computer all the time. Like, I've watched him use it as a way to learn something. Back to, you were talking about, you know, soccer, horse, stuff like that. My son's really big into soccer, right? And he's really trying to get into college and things like that as he's in high school right now. And he uses YouTube for all of his training. You know, he follows all the certain aspects to it. And when I think about the horsemanship side, holy crap, man, I could only imagine. Are you using some of those formats? I mean, is that something you're using, or is it I don't know. I mean, like, are you kind of using the technology there?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, I have made it a point not to be technical myself. So we actually have a media crew that work for me full time that film and edit. So they're part of our team, and we're looking into doing more and more of that. I've missed the boat a little bit on that. We have a pay-per-view channel where people get on there and they can click, and anywhere in the world you can go on there and learn how to do this and do that for just a short fee, small fee. And I quit making DVDs because there's a group out of Europe that were actually buying my DVDs and recording them and taping and then pirating them and selling them on eBay. And so when they received the DVD, it didn't work, and then they call our office and want to get it exchanged. And so, well, you didn't buy it from us, you know. And so that's what's driven me more to the Vimeo or the, you know, the style of the pay-per-view. I've got about 280,000 followers on my Facebook, and I'm trying to get better at keeping up with them, and I want to be able to grow that some more. And I think that there's certainly an opportunity there. The older people are starting to learn to use phones a little bit more. You even know some older people that are starting to know how to get on Facebook or the internet, and you know, and that's where, you know, just a few years ago, it was just a younger crowd that was doing it. Now the older people it's a necessity now, you know. So but yeah, to answer your question, I do a little bit of it, but I need to do a lot more.
That makes sense. Completely makes sense.
So my clientele is roughly from 40 to 65. Doesn't mean I don't have, you know, teenagers and 20-year-olds. I certainly do, but the demographics are in that area, and they, you know, own anywhere from 2 to 6 horses. You know, got a little place somewhere, and so that, you know, my clientele are mainly, you know, middle age or a little bit older.
What so if I'm trying to find out some information or get a video from you, you talk about the pay-per-view channel, how would I go about finding you on the pay-per-view channel?
I think you just go onto my website and you just navigate through there, and it'll show you, you know, where to go to and how to get there. Yeah.
You seem, I mean, like, just on the basis, if somebody were to listen to this conversation alone, you're very professional and very kind of stern in that point. But I've also heard that there is a much, much lighter side, possibly a prankster side of Chris Cox when he feels like it.
Yeah, you know, I guess I'm hard to read, and I probably do that for a reason. But I have a dry sense of humor. I love, you know, I love good joke and good prank, and you know, I think that one of the things I've got to be careful of is that I'm very passionate, and so when it's about business, I'm really focused and passionate. But I've had to learn to lighten up a little bit, and still be able to focus, you know. So it's just something. I've been very driven growing up, and I've got that kind of personality, kind of an A-type personality. But if you see me at rancheros and you know, kind of away, it's, you know, I'm a lot more relaxed. And if somebody comes to the house, and you know, we've got a guest ranch up there in Wyoming, and you know, I've got one of the things I'm really blessed with. I've got a lot of great friends, and how I treat people is very important. And if it takes, once you get to know me, it takes a little bit, but you know that I mean the best. And that's why I know when you walk by somebody and they don't say hello to you, or say if somebody's seen me on TV and I walk by them without saying hello or whatever, and it's so easy for that person to say, well, he's stuck up, or you know, he just full of himself. He's gotten success, and it's all about money, you know. And I hear that a lot with different people. You know what? If it was about money, I wouldn't do what I'm doing. I'd find something else. It's about passion, and it's about horses and people, and you know, that's really important, and that's why we started this foundation. You know, to be able to connect people and horses together, and children, help get them started off on the right leg. But yeah, I when on TV, I've had some of my producers say, "Hey, you need to lighten up, you need to laugh, you need to smile," and I do need to do that. But when I'm talking about something, I talk with my heart, and instead of my tongue, and so that's very important to me. That it's got to come across that I mean it. And I used to have a real stuttering problem growing up. My dad actually stutters as well, and once I got a horse in front of me, and the crowd didn't bother me at all because I was talking about something I believed in, and I started talking with my heart and not my tongue, and I never stuttered. So I think finding something you believe in is very important, and I always ask my students, and these are grown men and grown women, before the end of the clinic, I'm going to say, what's your purpose in life? What do you think you brought to this world for? And that really gets you thinking, what is your purpose? Well, why were you born? How are you going to make this world better? And so once you understand you've got a purpose, you become more driven and focused. Because I think there's so many people that are just wandering around and bumping into the side of things, and their rudder's missing. I think you got to have a rudder to be able to go in a direction you want to go.
That got deep really quick, man. That was like.
Yeah, I can tell a joke now, so I can break the ice.
Okay. Jeez. Are we going to hear the joke, or are you just going to leave us hanging?
Well, I don't know if I can tell my ranchero's joke on here, but I'll leave that alone.
Hey, I jumped on your site real quick, just going to make sure that everybody knows. It's www.chris/cox.com, and I'm on here, and I was just
dash Cox.
Yeah. I'm looking at your accomplishments. My goodness, man. Reining, cutting, team roping. There's not much you don't do with a horse that you haven't been awarded. That's for sure. Jeez. Just wanted to share that. Pretty amazing stuff here I'm looking at. Man, this is some good stuff, Chris.
Well, I appreciate it. I've still got a long way to go, and I'm still a student. But being inducted in the Cowboy Hall of Fame, Texas Cowboy Hall of Fame, was a big honor for me as well. And I've got a lot of wonderful friends and acquaintances, and just here a few weeks ago, Billy Etbauer and his son came to my clinic, and what an honor it was to get to know him. I knew him, but I didn't know him that well, and now we talk about every week or two. And it's the people. He's to me, he's a great example of a cowboy, a real down to earth cowboy, and you meet a lot of wonderful people and people that you can really learn something from. Surround yourself with great people, I think, is very important.
Couldn't agree more. Man, thank you for taking the time coming on here. This is when you get to hear people's lives and kind of how they've impacted something within the business. This whole podcast is wrapped around the 360 aspect of rodeo, and clearly horses are a gigantic piece of that. This is just once again, always learning something. And I want to thank you for coming on. Steve, Brylan, you guys got anything for Chris? This is, man,
a huge thank you for taking the time to share that. I mean, the knowledge is just amazing, but the passion just really shines through it.
Well, I appreciate you guys asking me to be on here. It's an honor to be on here and share some information.
Very cool, man. Thank you very much, Chris. That was awesome.
Bet, guys. Hope you all have a blessed day, and we'll talk to you soon.
We want to thank Karin Rosser from Flying U Rodeo and Chris Cox from Chris Cox Horsemanship for taking time out of their busy schedule to appear on NFR Extra. And stay tuned for episode 54 when we sit down with the CEO of the Pro Rodeo Cowboys Association, George Taylor. Want to experience more of the NFR? Then visit NFRexperience.com. And we invite you to subscribe to NFR Extra on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, or wherever you're listening right now. If you like what you've been hearing on NFR Extra, we would love it if you gave us a 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe. NFR Extra.
All dirt.
All rodeo.
All year.
Gotta make it out the Vegas, where the big boys roam, with the rovers and the racers and the bulls and the broncs, and the ladies in the skin-tight wranglers and the cowboy hats.